Welcome to Declassified, What Lies Behind America. I am Will Marsh, your co-host, joined here by
Luke Smith
and
Erick Cruz
and
Jessica Bernath.
Thank you guys for being here today. As you all know, this is a special investigative short series uncovering some of the biggest lies and myths that we know as Americans over our last 100 years. If you're joining us right now, this is for our third episode on the subject of what really happened in our country and around the world on the morning of September 11th. So thank you for joining us today, and Eric, take it away.
Thanks for having me, Will. So I want to start off by talking about what events led up to 9/11, what kind of went down.
That's a good place to start. Yeah, I don't think it started just on the morning of.
No. So in September 2000, there was a neoconservative think tank that included members like Dick Cheney, Ronald Rumsfeld, and Jeb Bush. They created what they called a
Those are all shady people already.
They created what they called a project for a new American century. The report titled Rebuilding America's Defenses, and it called for a massive military overhaul and plans to fight and win multiple theater wars. And this is a quote. It says, "The process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor." Now, 17 of those members from that group became members of the next White House administration in 2001, Bush administration.
Yeah.
So we know on September 11th, 2001.
Wait, so you're saying we had a warning?
Oh, there was the Bush administration had multiple warnings, multiple press briefings stating that terrorism is coming.
No surprise there. I've always thought they wanted to go to war, but we'll get into that. I don't want to jump ahead here, Mr. Cruz.
So allegedly, 19 hijackers on September 11th took control of 4 planes, and 3 of them hit buildings. One of them crashed in Pennsylvania. Now, before 9/11, 2 of the hijackers allegedly lived with an FBI agent in San Diego and were visited by 2 of the other hijackers of the 9/11 planes.
Wait, hold on. You're saying that the hijackers were roommates with an FBI agent?
2 of the hijackers lived with an FBI agent.
Had you ever heard this before, Luke?
Never.
I don't want to interrupt you, Mr. I think that point needs emphasis there.
Yeah.
Because they're all out that we've heard in the videos in the past. How many years has it been now? It's 2021. It's too much math for me. But point is, that is new to me.
Yeah, no,
So
this stuff
that's
is
wild, Luke.
If you read into it, the rabbit hole goes pretty deep. Now, this is another alleged. So an intelligence unit by the name of Able Danger claimed to have identified one of the hijackers, Muhammad Atta, and 3 other hijackers 2 years before 9/11. So supposedly they knew about these terrorists in the country. Now, of course, the Department of Defense and the FBI deny that any of this is true.
Of course.
So on August 6, 2001, the CIA's presidential daily brief, designated for the president only, was entitled, "Bin Laden Determined to Strike U.S." The memo noted that FBI information indicates patterns of suspicious activity in the country consistent with preparations for hijackings or other types of attacks. So the Bush administration was, getting these warnings, and they didn't take heed to the threat. No Department of Defense mobilized to do anything, no security overhauls, nothing.
Which is weird because the Bush administration for Republican was all about big government. So you'd think they would have had the resources to do something about it.
Yeah.
That's another thing is that administration, ran off the basis of, Republicans, small government, but all they did was like increase the size of the federal government by like 3-fold. It was wild, but yeah.
So although no proper action was taken by the FBI or the Joint Chiefs of Staff, there were still many terrorist attack simulations that implied that the Bush administration knew something was coming. Now here are some of the simulations that went down prior to 9/11. NORAD, the North American Air Defense Command, conducted training simulating hijacked planes targeting both World Trade Center buildings in the year before 9/11. Now remember, these are all simulations.
Yes.
War games, right? Training, if you will. According to a Pentagon email dated 5 months before the attack, the Air Force requested a war game that simulated a terrorist attack on the Pentagon. The request ended up being rejected for being too unrealistic. This one is called Operation Amalgam, Virgo, June 1st, 2001, so a few months before the attacks. Simulated a terrorist attack involving planes striking government buildings. Part 2 of the exercise involved FBI agents hijacking Delta airliners, but wasn't conducted until 2002 after the attacks. On the proposal's cover for the simulation was a picture of Osama bin Laden.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
They knew it, man. I knew.
Yeah, so all these war games and training, if you will, was going on, and the Bush administration knew about it, of course, he's the president. And so they kind of were getting ready for something. And, we, as the American people, didn't know a damn thing, because it's like, you don't want to scare people, right?
Of course, yeah, they kept us in the dark. I think they still have to an extent.
Yeah. So now I want to talk about what happened that day, on the morning of 9/11.
Okay, we're with you, Eric.
So 4 commercial airliners went off course with 19 hijackers, took control of 2 Boeing 757s and 2 Boeing 767s. All planes were meant to be headed to California. The planes took off at 9:59 a.m. At the same time, about 8:30, President Bush arrived at a school in Florida, in Sarasota, Florida, for an education.
He was reading to kindergartners that day, if I remember correctly, right?
He was reading at Booker Elementary to kindergartners, right? And I want to show on the screen, if we can, a video where during this, where he was reading, the kids had to say words out loud.
Get ready to read all these words on this page without making a mistake. Look at the letter at the end and remember the sound it makes. Get ready.
Kite.
Yes, kite. Get ready to read this word the fast way. Get ready.
Kid.
Yes, sound it out. Get ready.
Kid.
Sound it out. Get ready.
Kid.
What word?
Kid.
Yes, kid. Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready.
Seal.
What word?
Seal.
Yes, steal. Read these words the fast way. Get ready.
Play.
Yes, play. Get ready.
Must.
Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake.
And there was 4 words. It was kite, steal, plane, and hit.
Really?
Really. And if that video can be pulled up, that'd be great. Before entering the elementary school building, Bush claimed that he saw the first plane hit the North Tower live on TV, which is impossible because it wasn't until after the first plane hit that we knew.
Notified, yeah.
The news wasn't covering just the tower and expecting a plane to. So for him to say that's impossible. He didn't see it live on TV unless, right? So after Flight 175 struck the South Tower at 9:03 a.m., Chief of Staff Andrew Card came over to Bush and whispered in his ear, I'm sure you've seen the video, and walked away. Bush remained at the school for over half an hour.
He was unfazed by it too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he just sat there.
Yeah, he kind of told him to back, like he was going to keep reading. And then I think, wasn't it after like the second plane hit or something, like they came back to him and like re-explained, like, okay, like you need to stop reading to these kids at this point, and then he...
Yeah, so he was there for half an hour after he was informed about the first tower being hit. And you would think, the Secret Service, if America's under attack, they need to take the president, put him on Air Force One, send him to a bunker at a military base, get him out of there, right? Because where the president is could be a possible threat.
Correct.
Right? The terrorists may know where the president is.
That day, though, I mean, I'm judging off memory. I mean, I'm 30. I was, I believe, in 6th grade when this happened. That day, so the elementary school, I know after he was notified and they decided, hey, we need to pack up. Air Force One went up in the air and they flew like in circles around the world until like 6:30 that night, until I think Bush finally put his foot down and said, we're going to Washington and addressing this. Against, I think, recommendations, but I mean, the commander-in-chief had the ultimate say-so, and he took that plane back to Washington. But it wasn't until that night, I think.
Yeah, so technically in that situation, the president's Secret Service actually has full command over the president's actions, like where he goes and when he goes.
So they can tell him no?
If he said that he wanted to go to D.C. and they said no. They took him to Offutt military base and military base in Louisiana, but I'll get to that. And my thing is, the only way of knowing that Booker Elementary wasn't a target is if the Secret Service knew that it wasn't. So why would they leave him there for a half an hour, knowing that there's hijacked planes in the air?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
And it was public knowledge that, I mean, that the president was going to an elementary school to do a reading. I mean, that wasn't a secret.
No, yeah.
People knew Bush was coming that day, and so, I mean, if you're going to fly planes somewhere, I mean, in a unrestricted airspace out in the middle of Texas where there's a school underground, I mean, would be a good place to do it. So
yeah. And so this is what one of the most interesting things to me is there were 4 planes that day that went off course. You know, the FAA tracks all the planes in the air.
Of course.
You know, you see it on the screen, the flight paths, right? If a plane strays away 2 miles off of its projected flight course, fighter jets are scrambled to intercept that plane because something's going on.
Sure.
Right? Pilots also have the ability to call a mayday call. It's a 4-digit code. I believe it's 7500. That's the mayday code. No 4 planes sent out a mayday code that day. No fighter jets were scrambled until well after all of the attacks happened.
Until it was too late, yeah.
So what really went down was on September 11th, it was the second day of an exercise called Vigilant Guardian. Now, this exercise was conducted by NORAD and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and it simulated hijacked airplanes attacking the U.S. It says the exercise placed inputs on the screen of military controllers as Northeast Air Defense Sector NEADS in Rome, New York. So they put, they simulated plane attacks on their screens. So what they were looking at was what they thought was a simulation, but in reality, it was actually going down at the very same time.
Wow. Bad timing on that.
Right. Who ordered this day to conduct all these trainings?
It's a big shock to reality
Yeah.
at that point.
Vigilant Guardian is a branch of a bigger operation called Global Guardian, which is an Armageddon exercise conducted at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska in conjunction with NORAD and Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. So instead of returning to D.C., Bush flew from Booker Elementary to both Barksdale and Offutt Air Force Base before going back to D.C.
By any chance, I know this is minute details. Do you know if the president deboarded Air Force One at either of those bases to go meet with people or to go into, or did he,
No,
run Command Central from Air Force One on the ground?
Yeah, so they had, I'm pretty sure they had a decoy Air Force One, because there's more than one, you know. So they took him half an hour after it was announced to him at the school. They took him to Louisiana, Air Force Base in Louisiana, and then Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. And then I think around 1 or 2 after the airspace was cleared, he went back to D.C. And then around 8 p.m. he gave a final address to the nation about the day.
I remember that one.
Yeah. Another war game happening simultaneously was actually part of Northern Vigilance. Or I'm sorry, it was called Northern Vigilance. It was a part of
It's okay, I know you got a lot of notes here.
Global Guard.
Global
So
Guardian.
the operation was called Northern Vigilance. It moved fighter jets from an unknown location to bases in Canada and Alaska, so not in the U.S. And it was they were there to watch out for Russian MiGs. So you had all these fighter jets away from the U.S., right? Now check this out. 3 F-16s from Andrews Air Force Base, which is 15 miles out of D.C.
Yep, that's north of it, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
Were flown 180 miles away from training mission to the Atlantic shores in North Carolina, leaving them unable to defend the nation's capital. 180 miles away from where they were supposed to be.
That would have been Goldsboro, I'm guessing.
Yeah, they were out in the Atlantic.
Seymour Johnson. Oh, you were saying they were off the coast of North Carolina.
Yeah, they were out in the Atlantic doing their war games that day.
Whatever. Huh.
Langley Air Force Base did not launch fighter jets until 9:24 a.m., a half hour after the North Tower was struck, and 10 minutes before the Pentagon was struck. Although Major Kevin Mississippi, who was in charge of that fleet at Langley Air Force Base, he ordered those jets to fly towards the Capitol. But I don't know who gave the orders, but those jets were sent out to the Atlantic as well. So you have all these fighter jets that are just being sent away from... So at the same time, you have fighter jets going away from their bases. Then you have FAA controllers not seeing what's really going on. They're seeing fake inputs on their screen because of the war games.
Sure.
So how are these military forces supposed to intercept these planes that are going off course? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Sounds like there was some finagling in there. I mean, this is all good information you're bringing to us, Eric. It's almost like this many years later, it's still hard to put your finger on it. You know, who was responsible. I mean, and I know there's a lot of investigations done about this, and there were inquiries and panels, you know, by all kinds of government organizations into this whole event. And they've all still been running in circles, is the miraculous thing. So, I mean, but this is a lot of new information that I haven't even heard before. I don't know about Luke and Jessica here. But I mean, you know, it's in the details, and we're getting a lot of these details today, which is very, very helpful. I mean, I have so many questions, not necessarily for you, but for the Bush administration after all of this. But and we haven't even gotten to the controlled demolition part yet either.
that might have to be for part 2, because like you said,
I think it will be. There's so much pretext to this and going into this day. I will keep this episode just of, you know, what happened going into 9/11. Because to be honest, there's so much content here that it's two or three part episode. Plus, we love you guys on this podcast. Keep checking us out on Spotify. We'll keep coming back with you for more. So.
For sure. There's a lot of information here to even begin to scratch the surface on what happened. But yeah, so you have all these war games going on as the attacks were going on. It just raises a lot of questions.
Hey, real quick, Mr. Cruz, I don't mean to interrupt you, but on the subject of politics, I just got this notification, and since this is a political podcast, I thought we should at least share it. 4 minutes ago, Governor Cooper in North Carolina tweeted out that he is rescinding his mask restrictions starting this Friday. So there's some good news on.
I heard about that
on government. I just
earlier.
thought we should share that. If you guys haven't heard that yet, take your masks off. That's where it looks like where we're going. So
yeah, which is, I mean, you just gotta wash your hands, be a clean person, don't be freaking nasty.
Yeah, I mean that's a good rule. COVID or no COVID, exactly.
So during the summers, I usually work at Live Nation, doing security for concerts. And I haven't done that since COVID. And I got an email yesterday saying that they're going to start up because of the governor's decision. So
good. Well, yeah, things are back happening now.
Yeah, I'm ready for concerts, man. Live music is a place to be, man.
Yeah, especially being in audio. I'm sure that's been a bummer not being able to hang out in that environment since COVID. And I know all these artists too. I mean, it sounds like it's been a hard time to be an artist because they take out these massive loans, you know, to front the season, and then they're not, you know, making the money off the tour to pay it back. What a mess. So.
Yeah, it is a mess. But to get back on subject.
Yeah, we're done sidebarring. Sorry.
No, you're good. All right, so this is the official timeline of how it went down that morning. So 7:59, flights take off. They're leaving from Baltimore, Dulles International Airport, and Newark International Airport. 8:56 a.m., Flight 11 strikes the North Tower. 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 strikes the South Tower. 9:05 a.m., Bush is informed of the attack. 9:31 a.m., Bush makes an announcement. 9:37 a.m., Flight 77 strikes the Pentagon. 9:45 a.m., White House and Capitol are cleared. And this is where things start to go crazy because the first tower was struck at 8:56, right? That was the North Tower. The South Tower was struck at 9:03. But the first tower to collapse was the South Tower. It only burned for 56 minutes.
Yep.
And it came down in a pile of dust. So at 10:03, the fourth plane crashes in Pennsylvania in an abandoned minefield, strip minefield. 10:28, the North Tower collapses. 1:04, the airspace is cleared. So at 1:04 p.m., the Air Force cleared the airspace and nothing in the air. We're good. At 5:20 p.m., World Trade Center Building 7 collapses.
Yeah, that's the one that I've got questions about. Is this whole Tower 7 deal?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to that one.
And what gets me about it, if you guys don't know what we're talking about right now, go to YouTube or Google and just Google Tower 7. What we were talking about will come up. It's another World Trade Center. There's a bunch of World Trade Centers in downtown New York. And obviously, the two that most people know about are World Trade Centers 1 and 2 because they got famous for falling to the ground. However, World Trade Center 7 not only came down later on in the day when nothing was around it, however, when it came down in the identical manner that the other two towers came down. And now, mind you, the government said that after investigation, they concluded that Tower 7 fell because of fires that, there were a bunch of fires after the thing, and fire in the building, and, it had made it fall. Okay, I get it that there were a lot of fires burning in New York and there weren't firefighters left after the towers fell to do anything about it. However, Tower 7 was not filled with jet fuel and ignited. It didn't have the same impact of a million-pound jet striking it at the top. And mind you, those tall buildings, they're meant to sway. So, like, if you're at the top of a skyscraper, you'll feel it move.
Yeah.
They're meant to shake and move with the wind and the earth to, like, actually be more stable.
Right.
And so the shake of the building, when the plane hit it from that momentum, the jet fuel, all those they claim were the big factors in bringing Tower 1 and Tower 2 down. Well, if that's the case, there were entirely different elements to Tower 7. But it was brought down the same way, so you can't say, hammer away on that. I didn't mean to take your thunder, Eric, but there's a lot of questions we got on Tower 7.
So, in all of modern history, any steel-framed skyscraper has never been brought down by fire. The only three...
They're built not to do that.
Exactly. Cement and steel thicker than... so only 3 steel-framed skyscrapers have come down via fire in history. World Trade Center Building 1 and 2 and World Trade Center Building 7.
Yep.
And the World Trade Center is not a rookie to fires. They've had multiple fires in the past. One of the fires was in...
Don't forget the bombing in 91, 92? That's the whole reason that, it's funny you say that. I'm looking on my phone right now. There's a Netflix special on, maybe it's called The Hotel of Death or something. But it's a documentary series on the Marriott Hotel. So there was Tower 1 and 2, and they were a block away from each other.
Right.
But they were actually connected. Most people don't know that.
Yeah.
So there's a huge, luxurious conference center Marriott, Luke and Jessica, that was at the bottom of the 2 trade centers, and it connected. And so it was the World Trade Center Marriott was the name of it. And lots of people stayed there that had business in the city and whatnot. And if you were coming for any business in the trade centers, the hotel gateways connected. You could walk in at the 30th floor on either side of the buildings.
Yeah.
And so this Netflix special, I highly recommend it. It followed different people and their stories. One of which was the hotel clerk. She was a young Asian girl at the time working in New York. She was working I believe the morning shift at the hotel, and then she would go pursue her modeling career in the afternoon. But when that happened, she was working the desk, and she didn't, they were just in there, and all of a sudden they just hear chaos in the streets. Plane hits, and all of a sudden down below, all these people are on fire because the jet fuel's pouring and it's igniting people on the street. And so she stayed there to help. Kept her post in the hotel, but when the towers started coming down, they felt it, and so she got up under her hotel desk.
Yeah.
Now, this is a fancy Marriott. You walk in, it's a huge foyer. So it's like this huge, probably foot-thick, nice wooden desk, that's probably real expensive there, and she got under, and it just barely saved her life when all that came down. But no, on the Marriott, so we were talking about the bombing in 91.
Yeah.
It follows the story of a gentleman who was an attorney. I believe from Chicago. He had business in New York. He was staying up on the top floor of that Marriott the morning of the setting that you're talking about when the planes were coming.
Right.
And it's interesting hearing him talk about himself before 9/11 and after 9/11. He was a corporate attorney, and he really talked about himself like he was a real ass and a real jerk and didn't care about anything but his lawyer business. And so he was saying that, this was before he almost lost his life. And he was saying he was sitting there, he was doing, he had a cross-examination that morning or something, and, 9 o'clock in the morning, he's sitting there in his hotel room because he didn't have his first meeting until 11. So he's working in his hotel room, and he hears the plane hit. and he sees it coming down, and he literally said, he was like, fuck that, I have court. He was like, there's firefighters in New York. He was like, they'll deal with it. I'm an attorney. I got to keep working. So he's still sitting there in the Marriott as like this is happening above him, not evacuating. First tower comes down, right? And he had no idea. He's sitting there at his TV, like working, feels the tower come down on top of him. Goes, oh shit, his room was untouched. He opens his door after that, and like literally at his door is like where it got cut off, and he just sees the massive crater, and he's like, oh fuck, I have to get out of here.
Yeah.
And so when he goes, like it's dark, he can't see, the hotel's messed up, he's crawling, all of a sudden he meets a group of people coming to find him. They were FDNY firefighters that were assigned to go search for survivors in the hotel. Now, these firefighters get him, they're crawling with him, and they're going toward the stairwell, toward the tower that was bombed. I forget if it was 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So the first tower fell. I guess it would be Tower 1, because Tower 2 was hit second and it fell first, right?
Oh yeah, the South Tower.
Okay, yeah, so North Tower. So they are heading towards the tower that was still standing, that was reinforced in 91. And they're on that side of it. Well, they get into the hotel stairwell, and they're heading down that tower falls. They're all in a mess, debris is everywhere, they can't move, and all of a sudden they're counting off, everybody says their name, and then they realize one guy's not with them. When that tower came down, it took one of the firefighters on that crew, but they held on to that lawyer in that hotel room that they rescued. So even though they lost a firefighter, they still left the building with the same amount of people they came in with, which is sad but neat.
Yeah,
So anyway, so they were in the stairwell going down where it was reinforced because it was bombed in 91. Second tower fell on top of them, crushing everything. And they said that they couldn't move for hours, and eventually could get unstuck and work their way out of a window, and came out of a window and rolled down the debris.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing the attorney talk, and he said the firefighter looked at him in tears after he lost his other guy there, and was and they get out. It's 2 or 3 hours after the towers have fallen, and they look around and it's quiet. Everything's white, and the lawyer's like, where is everybody? And the firefighter turned and looked at him and said, me and you, this is it. Everybody else is dead.
Yeah.
No one's coming. This is hours after the event, mind you. It's just emotional hearing about it. And they said that they didn't know how they were crushed, but in looking back, I guess they had GPS, they've tracked when they were going through all this. In the study after the fact, they just got lucky and were in that stairwell that was reinforced because of the bombing in 91, and because of that reinforcement, and the new steel and all that, it held just enough not to kill them for the location that they were in, so they could get out, save people the rest of the day, and then this guy can go tell his story. So I thought it was neat. But yeah, on the bombing there, that it saved lives, the reinforcements, that for the few people I guess that were in that area.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of talk about, if you're a conspiracy theorist about 9/11, then that's very insensitive of you. But, I'm not out here saying that thousands of people died that day and more than 25,000 were injured, and countless more are suffering, lung cancer and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that's what people don't realize is the biggest killer of 9/11 wasn't the day of. Yeah. It was 50,000 people that got cancer in the following 10 years.
I remember I lived in northern New Jersey at the time. I was about 7 years old when it happened.
Oh, so you were geographically close,
I was
too.
very close. So the dust traveled west. So New York is here, I'm here. The dust traveled this way.
Traveled back inland, you're saying, because if it traveled east, it would have headed back, it headed to sea.
West, and I remember the dust or smoke, whatever you want to call it. I came back from, I think it was kindergarten that day, and you could see it in the air, and you could feel it in your mouth, and it was chalky, and it was just cloudy, and it was wow. It was insane. I remember seeing the second tower get hit on the TV. They used to have the TV in the corners of the classroom.
Yeah.
But yeah, my school was in lockdown for the whole day. It was a crazy day.
At least you got to see it when it happening. So I was in 6th grade that day. So we didn't always have TVs in our rooms. I went to private school. And that was the problem with it, is because they felt like, we were there to be educated and we were going to stay focused on the task. And so, like, I remember that day, like, everybody was being weird. Like, administrators were coming in the room and talking to the teachers and pulling them out. And then, like, our teachers were crying in class. Like, we were so confused. Yeah. And then, like, that day, my mom came and picked me up and she was crying and she said, Will, like, do you know what's happened? And I'm like, did Dad die? Like, wait, what is this? Like, and then she was like, they didn't tell you what happened? And I was like, no. But anyway, it was a shock. But the fact that you were close enough to be near the dust, see it, feel it, and taste it, Eric, that's wild, Luke.
Yeah, because I lived about 20 minutes from the George Washington Bridge, and so I can go to the city in like 30 minutes. So I mean, we were pretty close. It was just, I'll never forget that day. Like, the whole day, everybody was, like, silent. And for, like, weeks after, everybody was, like, holding doors open for each other.
Yeah, that's the one thing I wanted to touch on. Like, so, I've known a lot of people from New York. And after 9/11 as an adult, I've met a lot of people who came down south after 9/11. Because, I mean, I've met so many people who moved down here from New York. You don't need to ask them why. Like, they all have legitimate reasons for leaving New York.
Because of that sweet Southern comfort.
Yeah, and New York's a terrible state. But, I mean, it's very corrupt and a lot of people. But you're right on the Southern thing too, Jessica. But I met a lot of people who said that, like, I think I met a truck driver once and a taxi cab driver in New York, and said that, the weirdest thing about it was for like a week after 9/11, nobody in the city honked. If anybody's ever been in New York, it's honk, honk, honk. Everybody's yelling, screaming, and anywhere you go, all you hear is horns. But for days, nobody even bothered honking, which is what they've known to do to communicate their entire life in Manhattan. Yeah. Just out of somberness. In Jersey, it's an urban dense thing.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I just remember, like, it was just, everybody was just quiet, like, and like nice to each other, and even as a kid, I remember that, and it just stands out in my mind, Yeah.
You remember those Power of Pride bumper stickers that went across America? So there's one thing we've already gone about half an hour here, so I want to bring it to a close, but there's one story that I want to tell you real quick, Eric, on that subject. I grew up as a kid watching 9/11, like, just like you, like we've been talking about. I probably watched the news way too much for the years after, growing up as a young teenager, and saw what the soldiers were doing. I thought it would be badass to do the same thing. I had a cousin older than me that went in, and was in the initial invasion in Iraq, had a lot of cool stories. So growing up as an idiot teenager, like, that's all I thought would be the coolest job ever, is to go in the Army. Yeah, I learned very quickly, like, it was bad choice, but I did the Army thing, quickly regretted it. However, so right after this happened, you mentioned that night at 8 p.m. Bush addressed the nation. That epic speech is probably what got him reelected in his second term. Yeah. Because he had the power of the world on his shoulders. But there were a bunch of soldiers in the Army that, so we were talking about the Power of Pride bumper sticker. Right after 9/11, the New York Fire Department made these FDNY, Never Forget 9/11 stickers with the two towers. You may have seen pictures of them, or I'm sure you've seen the imagery over the course of your life. Oh, yeah. So these soldiers that went into Afghanistan for the initial invasion after 9/11, so when we went in, Bush sent in Air Force jets with these little pieces of confetti. And the Air Force jets just sprayed out these pieces of paper of confetti. And on these pieces of paper, in every single language in existence on this globe, it was printed like a letter from George Bush that said, "We are coming in to invade. If you are still here in 72 hours, you will be considered a threat to the United States and you will be dealt with accordingly." Signed, President Bush. They dropped those papers out of the airplanes. Bush kept his promise, came back 72 hours later. Most of those fools were still there. So anyway, the stickers, a bunch of those soldiers were touched by what you saw, what we've been talking about, what happened there in New York. So they spent their own money going to FDNY's website and buying a bunch of those, FDNY, Never Forget 9/11 stickers, right, that were benefiting, the money from them was benefiting the families of the firefighters that died. Yeah. These soldiers bought these stickers and they kept them in their cargo pockets. I remember, like, I'm wearing my ACU pants right now, those big cargo pockets you have on your side here. Yeah. And when they were clearing villages and shooting people, every time they shot a terrorist, they'd pull out one of those FDNY New York stickers that they bought from the fire department, and they'd slap it on that bitch's forehead and leave him there.
Wow.
Well, which I thought was pretty cool. It's like, if you're going to be a terrorist and get in the wake of that, like, they'll mark your body with one of those New York firefighter stickers. I thought that was the most patriotic thing I have ever heard of. Well, apparently, you know, there's a lot of rules of war and things that, like, the United States tries to play by the rules, but even though our enemies never do. Well, those soldiers were prosecuted, actually. They lost rank, they lost money. I think even a few of them went to jail for it. The U.S. Army came back, prosecuted those soldiers, and made an example out of them because you're not supposed to tamper with the body after killing it per the rules of engagement. So, shame on you, JAG. Y'all can be pieces of shit towards soldiers sometimes. I've had personal experiences with them. I'm not going to go on a rabbit hole, but the point is I thought it was a cool story. So,
Yeah, no, I mean, those firefighters, though, I mean, incredible heroes. I mean, they were running into buildings that were collapsing on fire, you know. A lot of them didn't make it, but, I mean, a lot of people's lives were saved because of them.
very true.
And like I said earlier, I mean, just because we're talking about theories and facts and evidence and stuff like that doesn't mean that we're sitting here discounting those lives lost and the impact that it had on this country.
Of course, that impact is a big thing. You know, I think you just said we were forever changed by it. I mean, all these years later, we're still sitting here talking about it. And, you know, I think we've talked about some opinions, but we've tried to stay on the facts as far as what we know, and you've done a phenomenal job of that today. So we really appreciate it, Eric.
Appreciate you. And I know in the next episode we're going to get into some serious stuff. So
Very good. Luke, Jessica, y'all been quiet over here. We appreciate you guys being with us. Do y'all have any questions for Eric as we begin to kind of wrap up?
None that I can think of.
I have one in particular.
Please.
You guys seem extremely knowledgeable with your education based on that time frame and over the fact that you guys were basically there even if you were at a young age. But it's difficult because most of the information that is told now is all mainstream. So it's hard to say that the 9/11 timeline facts make sense or fit neatly together perfectly.
That's a very valid point.
Especially if the story is full of espionage, deceit, and lies. I feel like it was always due to the fact to keep the general public remaining ignorant, to benefit, I guess, them, because ignorance is bliss, but at the same time, you know, the government just in a whole. So out of curiosity, where did your sources come from, if you remember? I know you have a lot of notes, so it's hard to go through all of that.
Where'd you find her, Luke? She's good.
I can't tell you.
Yeah. That'll be on the next episode.
That was an extremely good question because, like she said, I mean, you can't believe everything you hear. And so the 9/11 Commission was the official report put out by the government as to what happened and what went down that day. So the survivors and the families of the survivors came together and formed like a resistance, if you will, on finding the truth of how it happened. And many different sources, documentaries that have been backed up with, you know, I have footage that we're going to be playing. I have images and eyewitness accounts.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
It's kind of heart moving.
So if y'all are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, we also do a video version of this. And I think that's what Eric and Jessica are talking about. Our video producer, Aya, who does a phenomenal job with this series. We love you, Aya. She will add a bunch of these links and texts into the video version, which if you're watching us on the video, hey, thank you for being here. But you can check it out on YouTube, and we'll post a link for all these sources as well. So, Jessica, what a great question. I mean, that's what better way to wrap it up than request to cite your sources. So,
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
yeah. Excellent. Well, if y'all don't have anything else, this is okay.
To be continued.
To be continued. This has been Declassified, episode 3. See you guys next time.